Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Bucs UK TV. We're episode 86, and we're trying to stay smiling. It's a bit tough, but we're doing our best. I'm the host for this one. My name's Alex. I've got Tim, David, and Gary. Hello, gents. Thank you for joining me for this one.
Hello.
So I could stretch this out, but I think we'll just get straight into talking about the game on Sunday. A loss to the Bengals. A very difficult watch from a Buccaneers perspective, certainly in the second half. Gary, give us your overall views and thoughts on the game.
Well, I think this game was really summed up the season as a whole. Disappointing. I mean, every word, every adjective you can think of for disappointing, you can insert there. When I came on here a couple of weeks ago, I had a prop, and that was it, my wallpaper brush, because I thought all we were doing was papering over the cracks. I've got another one for you now, another prop. There you go. Stick that in us. We're done. The season is over. That's my thoughts on the game.
Quite a damning summary there from Gary. I mean, I think some points he's made are very valid, though, of course. But do you agree with Gary on that one?
I do, yeah. We have been struggling all year. That was, if you ever call a game of two halves, that was it. I've never seen a team, probably in any sport I've ever followed, implode as much as we did during the beginning of that second half. From the fake punt on, you could just see all energy, everything drain out of us. And as Gary said, it was inevitable. You just saw it, it was inevitable. And that's the worst part of it. We've been used to watching inevitable losses. We're not used to them over the last couple of years. But there is just nothing in this team. The heart seems to have gone out of it, and the life is gone.
It was the way they lost that was the issue. I mean, how can you go from playing so well in the first half to turning in a performance in the second half that, quite frankly, in best part of 40 years watching this team, that was the worst half of football I've seen. And not just the worst Buccaneer half of football, it was the worst half of football I've ever seen.
I mean, no one was on the same page. In particular, in that second half, the snap, so Tim mentioned the, was it? Sorry, I can't remember already. Only a couple of minutes, and my brain's going already. But one of you mentioned the snap to Bernard, which was just absolutely laughable. And then you got Fournette dropping the ball as well. You got Brady lost. I think it was 2 fumbles. He lost them both. There was just no, I mean, Mike Evans had a better game this week, but that connection between Mike Evans have been struggling recently as well. It just doesn't look like they're on the same page half the time.
Again, and it was all Evans was just the half. Didn't see him second half at all, did you? Rushed right, disappeared out the game. He got benched.
He got targeted once in the second half and got a PI for it.
Yeah,
but that sums it up. They went in the dressing room, they flipped the switch and decided they were going to be a completely different team, and it just baffles me completely.
So I'm going to put a bit of a different spin on it.
I think you might be reading my mind, David. Go on. I was about to ask you something.
I think we went into that game actually thinking we were going to get destroyed. And actually, what we did show in that first half was all the potential we've got.
Do you think, David,
as crap as the season has been, as crap as the season definitely has been, we've got 3 winnable games now. And that's the final chance we got to create momentum, get a bit of belief and do something. And as goddamn awful it has been this year, we are still in there. And that was the first 30 minutes, and Gronk and everyone on commentary said that was the first half of football, realistically, this season, apart from the Dallas game, which was the opener, we've actually looked like a football team. And I think that third quarter, one stupid mistake just knocked over the first domino. They all came. If we hadn't have got that, then I don't know. But ultimately, I think it was just a case then that everybody just tried too hard. You know, Brady went, you know, when we took Brady over, we all said the best thing about Brady is he doesn't make stupid mistakes. He doesn't try hard. If it's not there, he throws it away. And he's got to the stage now where he's trying to take it on his shoulders and create things that aren't there. And I think that's the same on the running game, everything. And, you know, I think we've proven actually if we get out there, we can play, but we've got to take stock now. And I say, you know, we'll talk about the game coming up this weekend. That is definitely winnable. As much as I said that going to Carolina, and that was pretty awful. But, you know, sooner or later, something's got to change, and you just hope that it does.
David,
I
don't know.
We did change first half. What was the first play we ran?
Yeah, it was a pass, wasn't it?
Play action first.
What a shot.
We started to spread the field out a bit.
Mm.
We took that predictability that we'd shown throughout the season. We threw that out of the window first half. But then we reverted back to type. Yeah.
Well, we
but
became...
on the flip side, sorry, David, just wanted to interrupt there because you said about all the certainly a lot of the negative aspects of the game, which we will talk about in more detail, certainly. But on the flip side, if we look at that first half, we really did look like the football team that won the Super Bowl. We were, for me, that was yes, there was the mistake that towards the end of the first quarter, but we looked at that overall in that first half. I enjoyed watching it. I thought we looked like a really, really good team.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't disagree.
The run game, so important. We said it all last season as well, and season before. Even, you know, the Super Bowl season, we bit sluggish to actually get going, and it was all built about having a run game. Exactly the same when we played Seattle in Munich. It was all on the back of a decent run game that it opens up everything downfield. And the minute we pull away from that, then we're too predictable.
Well, let's have some fun for a minute. Let's start throwing some stats in, shall we? Because we do like good stats on this this podcast. I mean, the line for both teams wasn't great. I mean, we had 92 yards total, and Cincinnati had 53 yards total. Gary, what do you make of that?
Well, I think Vita Vea is a big miss in the middle. I think he's obviously really good at stopping the run. I've got to confess, I would have said they had more than 53 yards. But, you know, that's a pretty good effort. I think defensively overall, you know, they weren't bad in the first half. They were absolutely excellent. Todd Bowles finally remembered that he was an aggressive coach. You know, we had DBs contesting the catch at the point where the receiver was going up for it. You know, we had defensive linemen getting their hands up and deflecting balls, and, you know, but in the second half, you know.
Well, the second half, he gave them short fields every time through that third quarter. And that's what they scored on. I don't think the defence, in fairness to them, really got beaten up. We just gave them, they were taking possession on the 20 and 30-yard line in our half.
No, you're absolutely right. The defense wasn't the problem on the day.
No, and then I mean, again, so the more positives. You know, defense wasn't a problem. I thought defense did play really well overall. I mean, one thing I did enjoy watching, Tim, in particular, and this really stood out for me, was the drive for Godwin's touchdown. It was methodical. It was steady. It was planned out. I mean, that was great to watch. That's the Tom Brady we know and we've seen. That drive there, that was Tom Brady-esque.
But that was because there was a mix of plays and different plays. You know, you finally saw Cade Otton down the field, you know, targeted once properly during the game. Again, you look at what happens to some of these players after they make these catches. That was a proper Bucs drive, but we're talking one drive. You know, it's the run game for me is still an issue. We don't run, we don't pull enough. We don't create any sort of real space for White, who is particularly starting to impress me. Whether he's gone past Fournette quite in the pecking order at the moment, I'm not sure, but it's pretty close that he will be our starting back next year at this moment. But our offensive line is not creating enough space, holes, time, and that's down to all the all the injuries we've got. We've talked about our offensive line all year. They are better than what they have been. It was great not to hear Donovan Smith last night. So,
it's an interesting point there you make about Rashad White potentially being or getting close to Lenny in terms of being first string, because White had 11 carries and Fournette had 10. So we're certainly seeing White get more production. And there was a few times where I watched the game last night and I thought White was very Le'Veon Bell-esque in terms of his patience. He didn't try to force it. There was a few times where he sort of stuttered and then waited for the gap and went, which is very similar to Le'Veon Bell. And for me, that's not a bad comparison on that one at all. David, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, they both had good games on Sunday. Both got 83 yards receiving, a touchdown for Godwin. It was good to see. Obviously, most of that did come in the first half, but it was good to see those two coming back into it.
Absolutely. Evans just hasn't seen enough ball towards him in the last 4 or 5 weeks, and that if he gets downfield, he's either going to contest it and make a good play or get a flag. I'd say 4 out of 6 times he's going to really make a big play in our favour for either defensive pass interference or reception. So you've got to target him. And, we did in the first half, but then he disappeared again in the second. Godwin, really pleasing to see him actually receiving the ball downfield. I think too often this season he's almost been used in the backfield with slants. And, 2 or 3 years ago, we saw him in his prime and he was at his peak fitness probably, and fitness is probably a bit to it. But, actually getting him downfield and make receptions was huge for us. I think we still didn't go for the big bombs. I think we still could have stretched the field a bit further. But there was plenty of zip out there. And, that first half, it was just great Bucs football. But we just couldn't keep it going.
And Gary, Russell Gage as well. I haven't mentioned him yet, but Brady seemed to rely on Gage quite a bit there. 9 yards, 2 touchdowns for him on the night.
Yeah, he's turning into being someone who's pretty reliable now that he's fit. Anyway, he had that sort of deflected touchdown pass last week as well, didn't he? So he's coming on. Going back, sorry, to Dave, to the running game. You've got Fournette and you've got White, but you're absolutely right. White is very much the Le'Veon Bell type, the patient runner. Fournette is the bigger guy and the power back. But that's what teams have got these days, haven't they? And think back to our glory days of Michael Stott, Warwick Dunn. You had the little guy, you had the big guy with the power back. They try and emulate that. I don't know. I think they're both under contract next year, or certainly White is. I'm pretty sure Fournette is. So at the end of the day, between those two, it doesn't matter who starts. They're going to get equal carries, more or less, and they complement one another pretty well, I think.
So a wonderful first half. We go in 17-3 up, and then we come out second half, and the whole thing just crumbles.
Well, I think it started before the end of the half. It started before the end of the half. All of a sudden, our defence went soft, allow them to get on the board with 3 points. They just marched down the field the last 2 minutes, got a score. We just reverted back to old Bucs, didn't we? I mean,
Gary always makes reference when we start to play really soft. We play soft, and our defensive backs are 15 yards back down the field.
Tony Romo mentioned that on commentary as well, Tim. He highlighted that as well.
You can't leave Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, although Higgins isn't as fit as he has been, 10 yards of space. Those guys will cut you up. Yeah. And it showed in the second half. Their figures weren't massive, but everything was in front of our defensive backs all through the second half. And it wasn't in the first half. As Gary alluded to earlier, we were competing at the point of the catch. All we were doing second half was competing to tackle. Some of that not particularly well either.
No, and you've got to blame that on coaching. That's the call playing. That's how they chose the scheme.
Well,
coaching is a good point, because coaching is, in my view, the problem. And I've been reading articles, last couple of days. are these coaches going to survive? Is Leftwich going to survive? Is Bowles going to survive? It's an interesting thing for the off season, isn't it?
I mean, I know it's not going to happen, but I'd love to see. I'd happily see Bowles go back down to defensive coordinator. I doubt he would take it, but we know. I absolutely do. I see you shaking your head there. I agree with you. I don't think he would do that, but we know how good a defensive coordinator Todd Bowles is. He couldn't do it at the Jets. We feel, or I feel, that we've got a better team than he had in New York. When you got Tom Brady, for goodness sake, as your quarterback and other big name players on this team, there's no other way to put it. We should be doing better than 6-8. Simple as that.
This is the first time I've seen a coach put a player under the bus where he called out Gio for saying that the play was clear to him and he missed it. And you see the press conference afterwards or in the locker room with Gio. Didn't go down very well, did it?
No, it almost when you see coaches doing that, it's almost desperation in my view. They're sort of running out of excuses. Where do I go to next? The player's getting called. I'll go to a player. Sorry, Tim.
You call that player out in the locker room or in the meeting rooms after the game.
Yeah.
You win as a team, you lose as a team. Yeah, was Bernard at fault? Going by everything you hear, he knew the play. They practiced it all week. He knew that. As the up back, you've got to know the call of the play, whether it's being thrown back to the punter. You've got to know what's going on. That was inexcusable of Bernard. But you don't call him out in the press.
No, absolutely. I mean, another big thing we've got to talk about these. We've spoken about them many times over this season and last season, but the penalties as well. Absolutely killed us. We had that huge sack on Burrow, which is then negated due to. I'll be honest. I thought it was a bit of a harsh call on. It was David, I think, wasn't it? I think it was Levante David for that one. But then there was another play on the offense when Evans had the catch and Godwin gets called for the blindside block, which again which I wasn't sure on there. I think Can we consider ourselves unlucky on these penalties?
I think if you make the penalty, you always give the umpires a chance to throw the flag, don't you? So it's difficult. I mean, there were a lot of times in the game I thought where actually Brady got hit. Taken down where actually we could have easily had personal fouls, but that happens in every game. There's always stuff that gets flagged. There's always stuff that doesn't get flagged. So you just have to take them, but we don't do ourselves any favours.
The thing about the Levante David questionable holding call was not the fact they threw the flag. For me, it was who committed that penalty. Levante David knows better. He's been in the league since, I don't know, 10, 12 years. He knows better than to do that. And as you say, Dave, don't give him the opportunity. If he didn't put his hands out, then they can't throw the flag. And we'd have had a 25-yard sack. And that's probably an even bigger momentum killer than the fake punt.
Yeah. But you could argue as well, if he was using his footballing brain a bit more, David didn't even need to get his hands up there at all. By the time Burrow was, by the time he got his hands up, Burrow was already scrambling for his life. We had 3 of our players going after him.
Yeah, but unfortunately, David was looking the wrong way down the field.
Yes,
he?
Which
made it behind him. He wasn't looking up the field of what the quarterback was doing. He was trying to protect his space behind him. So he wasn't looking in the right direction.
No.
It was the right call. When you look at it on tape, it was the right call. And listen to the referee on Godwin's play, it was the right call.
Yeah.
But
it's just frustrating how soft it can be, isn't it? But that is the NFL.
But you see a lot of these plays go week in, week out and never get called. No way you can be biased and say, that didn't do us any favours. But as Dave said, you don't put yourself in that position to give the referees and the umpires the opportunity to throw that flag. So it was disappointing stages of the game, but we'd already lit the touch paper and stood well back by then.
No, absolutely. And we need to have a chat about special teams as we always do.
Do we? Do we really?
Well, we
Alex,
can't
if I
skip.
can give you my
we can't-
heading for that, which is not so special teams. And that's what I've written on the top of my sheet.
Quite frankly, Keith Armstrong ought to be the first coach to go.
I mean, judged on what we saw on
What
Sunday,
we've seen all year.
and that as well, absolutely. I mean, it's just baffling, isn't it, Gary? Special teams. It's just. I don't know what more we can say about special teams really on our side at the minute.
As Tim said, it's not particularly special. I mean, you're trying a 52 or whatever it was yard field goal with a kicker who hasn't got a leg for that. It took them all year to figure out that Jalen Darden wasn't a returner. And we put a guy in there who's trying to make an impression on his very first NFL game. And look what he did. He was phenomenal. In his second game, you know, he's obviously been coached up by this wonderful coaching staff. And what happens? Absolutely.
Yeah.
They probably told him that's not how we play special teams.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want 50-yard run backs.
No.
Just run it, you know, run sideways, run backwards, fall down.
I mean, he looked like Benny Hill, didn't he?
It was wrong, and he got it wrong. I don't mind his effort, because last week, the kickoff before that, you can see much more effort than done. Yeah, if he's got any sense, a couple of the old boys that got hold of him and said, "Don't do that again, son." As Gary said, don't expect the coaches to do that at the moment.
No, I mean we've mentioned coaching already, but it is just it's almost laughable right now. I mean we've been talking about 20 minutes about the game. We could probably talk at least another 20 on all the things that we're not thrilled about in terms of particularly the coaching. You know, I mean we haven't even mentioned the O-line much, and for me they are absolutely. You know, I think Tim, you were saying about how Brady's trying to carry it on his shoulders and make things happen. I don't think the guy's got a choice. He's getting absolutely no time in that pocket. You know, if you look at all the O-lines he had at New England, they were good at protecting him. I'm sorry, this O-line, who's currently starting right now, they're not very good. Brady needs more time, otherwise he can't do it.
I mean, he got sacked once this game, which is probably a vast improvement. And he did try and actually come up into the pocket more, didn't he? And that really ended up turning into a drop fumble. So
that's it. He got sacked once, but lost the ball twice.
Yeah.
And he fumbled it twice, didn't he? And threw 2 interceptions.
Yeah.
You know, Tom Brady needs time.
If he sees his hand off back to Fournette, him and Fournette are 2 yards apart, and the ball is already separated from them. So, you know, people say, "Oh, Fournette." No, that was a break. You know, fairness to Brady, he came out and said, "I've got that wrong."
Yeah.
What I like about Brady, when he gets it wrong, he'll stand up and say, "I've got it wrong." But
I mean, how much do you put that game on Brady?
Partly, yes.
I wouldn't put it all on Brady.
Yeah, that's not the Tom Brady we hated in New England, but love in Tampa. It's not. The errors he was making, you know, we've all been going out to watch the Bucs for years. That was sort of Vinny Testaverde, Trent Dilfer-esque. Some of the throws he was putting out there. It's not what we expect, and unfortunately, it's what we're getting at the moment. And the coaching doesn't matter. We're just not performing, and to lead the division at 6-8, you know,
what can you say about that?
It's fairly embarrassing. You know, there's been some jokes going around that they ought to stop the NFC South qualifying and let the NFC East go through on block. And at the moment, any of the NFC East teams could beat ours.
Absolutely. I mean, the worst record in the NFC East, I'm just having a quick look now, is 7-6. And then the best record in the NFC South, as you always said, Tim, is ours at 6-8.
Yeah.
I mean, we've almost become the AFC East, haven't we?
Yeah. It's hey, if we win the division, whether it's 6-11, possible. You can still you can't quite win it because we're playing a couple of games against each other. But you win the division this year with 8 games.
I mean, hey,
Yeah.
at least it looks like we could be watching playoff football again this year. You know, every cloud. I'm
Well,
trying to finish on a
at least it'll be
positive
short
here.
and
Help me out,
sweet.
gents.
Although Dallas did lose to Jacksonville this weekend, so you never know.
No, yes.
On any given Sunday, as they would say.
That's absolutely right.
You know, you've got to get in the party. You've got to be on the dance floor. So let's get in there and see what happens.
We beat the Cardinals, we beat the Panthers, we beat the Falcons, we're in and we got momentum.
Absolutely, David. So,
Big city said, Dave.
absolutely.
But obviously they're all 3 winnable games. We'll talk about that now in a moment. But
We will indeed. But let's finish off this segment about the game on Sunday with. We haven't done this for a while, but I am gonna. So I didn't tell you guys we're gonna do it, but I'm gonna put you guys on the spot. I think you could probably choose about 5 things. What I'm gonna ask you. Let's do a magic wand, shall we, for Arizona? But flick the magic wand. What can you change coming up to? It's Saturday actually. The game on Christmas Eve. The game is this one. So Tim, what's one thing? Well, in fact, you know what? Have as many things as you want. What would you want to change before Saturday?
I would abandon half time and just let them play on for 60 minutes. I don't know if that's quite allowed. But actually, when the Panthers were in the Cardinals would be in the dressing room, we might stand a chance of scoring. That would be one thing I'd change. You've got to keep changing these plays up. I like the way we started the game. We've got to keep that pattern of behaviour and play calling going. Let's just don't get stereotypical Bucs football. We'll run it up the guard. We'll be 3rd and 6 and we'll punt after the failed pass. Let's get out of that. So keep. You've got nothing to lose now. Nobody is expecting the Bucs to do anything. So let's be different.
David, what about you?
It comes back to mixed offense with more focus on the run and play action. I mean, when we get action in it was, it was working. It was good. So, we've got to mix that offense up. And the big thing we've not really focused on is our red zone offense. The inability of us to convert those into touchdowns. Again, the chances we had, all the receivers, everybody seemed to be compact in the middle. You look at the start of the season when we drop out wide deep in the corners to Mike Evans and let him make plays there. We've totally disappeared from doing that. Everything is congested. It's too tight in there every time we try and make those plays. I don't know what's gone on there, why things have suddenly changed.
He's trying to throw it to Gronk over the middle, not realising he's not there anymore.
It's like that. It'll be Kay Dawson's name next season. And Gary, what about you?
More of it this year, to be truthful.
Absolutely. And Gary, for last but not least.
I've got a couple really. I've already mentioned a coach that I think is doing a particularly appalling job, and that's Keith Armstrong. So I'm rather hoping he misses the bus to the airport and doesn't actually get on the trip to Arizona. But the most obvious one is injuries. I know every time we do a magic wand, it's injuries. What I would like is when they name the inactive players at the start of the game, I'd like them to name the 7 they want to name rather than the 7 they have to name because they're injured.
Good point.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. We looked much better again in the secondary, and then as soon as Winfield went out the game again,
Absolutely. We didn't even speak about Winfield much at all, actually. But I'd say huge loss. And my magic wand, I could say many things, but I just want Brady to have more time, so Brady can do what he needs to do. I know. Yes, less sacks this week, all last week, should I say, which is great. But they're still getting pressure on him. Fumbling twice, 2 interceptions. We just need our O-line to protect Brady more. So you've heard from us about our views on the game against Cincinnati. It doesn't get much better from our members, I'm afraid, everybody. So let's see what someone had to say. We'll start with Graham. O-line shambles. I'm hanging my hat on the O-line being a big problem here. Can't open holes for the run and can't protect the quarterback. The loss of Kappa, ironically playing against us tonight. Marpet, then Jensen and Stinney. hasn't been overcome. I forgot he was playing against us, actually, Kappa. That's a fair point. I had completely forgotten about that. Nick, this was probably the comment of the evening on the forum. A lot of us thought this was superb. First half, 911. What's the nature of your emergency? There's been an outbreak of competency in Tampa. Send help, quick. Second half, 911. What's the nature of your emergency? Sorry, me again. Forget the previous request. Everything has reverted back to normal. that has got to be the comment of probably of this season on the forum so far. Nick, absolutely brilliant. Love that. And then Alex says to finish off, this really is a staggering capitulation. First half was a total. We miss a field goal, and since then, everything you could imagine you could do in a football game that is a disaster, we have done. As others have said, Burrow and co have done nothing special. We've abandoned the game plan and we've made several huge errors. So that's our review of the game against against the Bengals. David, I'd like to pass over to you for some Bucs UK club news.
Yeah, obviously we've had all our watch parties this year. Who knows, we might possibly do one in the playoffs. But big thing in a minute is membership renewals. So it's that time again, despite how it's going at the minute. We all love our Bucs. The forum has just been amazing during the games. Talk about group therapy. It just gets better and better. It was another lively night. And really, you don't want to miss out on that. The whole point of the club is actually the community and us all sharing our love for the Bucs. So make sure you don't miss out. Make sure you get your membership renewals in. And I think there's a lovely new designed patch coming your way with your membership this year. So make sure you look out for that.
Always love the Bucs UK patches. And it's important to stress as well, David, that essentially the memberships go down to 0, don't they, in January? So people do really need to renew so that we can get our club, keep our club the good size it is to keep doing our events and meetups, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we got to 535 paid up members this year, which is brilliant. We want to see that again. Remember, hopefully the Bucs will be in Europe every couple of years. So, it's important to stay with the club. So, and I say everything we do from the club competitions, from the game watches, just all the online mixing and that, it's just, brilliant. You don't want to miss out.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you for that, David. We got to the point of the show where I do need to thank Bucs Report. Please go and check them out. Their links are in the description below. Also, make sure you hit the like button on the show. Those likes really do help us out. Make sure you're subscribed and to hit that notification bell so you're notified every time we upload. Come and check us out on social media. Our links are also in the description below. We'd love to hang out with you there. As David's always said, renewals for our current members are open. And if you want to become a Bucs UK member, we are always wanting new people to come and join us. Please check out that link again in the description below. All the information on joining is on our website. We'd love to welcome you to Bucs UK. On to Arizona, it's going to be a very early kickoff for us here in the UK. It's on Boxing Day for us here, 1:20 a.m. kickoff. So after plenty of drinks on Christmas Day, we can keep ourselves going all through to the early hours on Boxing Day morning. So Gary, we are traveling to Arizona for this one. They've got some issues at quarterback in Arizona. They're out of the playoff picture. Could this be a harder game than we're probably thinking it is?
Well, it's a game I've always thought that we would win. I don't necessarily think that them being out of the playoff picture is going to help us. They're professional athletes at the end of the day. They're going to be trying to win. They've got one or two fairly decent players, even though they might be struggling at quarterback. They're probably down to about their 5th or 6th string quarterback now, apparently. So that's not necessarily a bad thing when you're playing against the Buccaneers, because we have a habit of making backup quarterbacks look like, Joe Montana and Joe Namath and everybody else, every other good quarterback you can think of.
San Francisco 49ers. Sorry. I got something down my throat there. Sorry. I probably should have mentioned that one, but I wasn't on the episode that week, so I thought I'd bring it up somehow. Yes. So David, Gary says about how they're on something like their 4th or 5th quarterback. that worries me more than anything else because, as I said a split second ago, look at what happened against San Francisco. Are we going to make a backup quarterback look like they're, about to go into the Hall of Fame?
Thankfully, it wasn't his debut because he got a lot of reps against Denver. But yeah, Trey Shawley, a couple of interceptions. Thing is, he hasn't got is a good O line in front of him. I was
Neither
looking.
we.
Well, no, but I think we've got a decent enough defense to get at them if Todd Bowles really dials it up. I don't think they've had the same front 4 or 5 in any game this season. They've struggled all the way through. And I watched sort of their game highlights earlier, and that O-line definitely struggled. I mean, Denver just sacked them to pieces. So, so I think if we can get at them, and I think this is definitely the time for our defense to go all out blitz, particularly if we've got, the likes of Murphy Bunting, Edwards, hopefully Winfield all back in the backfield. We can afford to do that a bit more. So I think the pressure from our defense will really pay off this time.
Tim, do you think this could almost be a defensive shootout? We've got 2 O-lines that are struggling a bit. David's mentioned about Arizona O-line. We know about the Bucs O-line. It's just going to come down to defenses on Boxing Day or Christmas Day Eve if you're in America.
I genuinely believe this will be the Bucs coming out party for this season on offense. This Arizona team, a bit like the Bucs, were good a couple of years ago, but are now really, really starting to struggle. They'll be picking in the top 4 or 5 by season end, probably, with the likes of Kyler Murray. Depends on whether Colt McCoy passes concussion. Don't think he's going to. So it should be, on paper, our chance. Defensively, you are right, to really tee off on a third-string quarterback. Gary and I have been here for some poor Bucs performances against those types of players. But this is a game that should be won and should be won comfortably on paper. But we've said that about the Panthers, the Steelers, and so on this season.
I mean, right now, I wish the game was being played on paper after what we've seen the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I'd like to get an opinion from all 3 of you here about what do you think the Bucs need to do to get a victory. David, I'll come to you first.
On the offense, they've got to keep JJ Watt out of Brady's face. And that's either by running it more, screen passes and letting him be aggressive, but then just picking the ball behind him. And then allowing us to open up the offense. But yeah, protecting ourselves from what is got to be the number one thing on offense.
Gary, what about you?
Yeah, I completely agree with Dave. JJ Watts, I had a look through their roster earlier today, and he was the only name I recognised. So they are a team of no names, but a superstar, albeit now an aging superstar in JJ Watt. I think the thing they've got to do on offense is on the plane ride over to Arizona, whenever they go, is they need to put the tape on of the game, of the first half of the game against the Bengals. And when they get to halftime, whiz the tape back to the beginning and watch it again.
Just have it in the locker room, ready to go as soon as they walk in.
Have the first half on loop and just keep watching it. So, play action, run the ball, protect Brady, all the good things that they were doing, and all the good things they were doing against the Bengals.
And Tim, what are your thoughts?
Play 60 minutes. Play 60 minutes at the high level. That's all they've got to do. All this team has got to do is play at a high level for 60 minutes. But we haven't done it all this year.
I think what's more frustrating.
Dallas and New Orleans to kick off, we've looked decidedly average and have not put together a complete game at any point.
I think what's more frustrating, I agree with you there, Tim, is that it's also the fact that we know that this team can play very good football. We saw it against Cincinnati in the first half. this team can play very good football, which is why it's even more frustrating when you see a collapse like we did in the second half against Cincinnati, when you see a collapse like we did against the 49ers. If we didn't have that ability or the players to do it, we'd probably go, okay, it's what we expect. When you got the likes of Mike Evans, Tom Brady, Levante David, Devin White, Antoine Winfield Jr., Sean Murphy Bunting, I could go on and on. It makes it even more painful to see what's going on here.
I mean, you go back to the Raheem Morris days and Greg Sean, and you say, yeah, our team is crap, and you just take the losses on the chin. But it is just so damn frustrating now that they really should be achieving more.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's the joys of being Bucs fans, guys.
Yeah.
I probably should have known that I became a Bucs fan during the Greciano era, shouldn't I? I should probably have worked it out at that point. I know that's a discussion.
The few of us been around a lot longer than that.
So my sort of to answer my own question, I agree with everything you guys said, but I'm going to throw something else in there as well. And I think we need to watch Marquise Brown or Hollywood Brown as well, particularly when I see what the soft coverage we were playing against Cincinnati. We were dropping about 10 to 15 yards at the snap, having their receivers having a load of space, and all Burrow was doing was throwing it underneath. If that happens against Arizona, all their quarterbacks got to do, and like we said, they got a certain DeAndre Hopkins there as well, who admittedly has not been the same player that he was in Houston, but we know what he is more than capable of coming up big. Him and Hollywood Brown on these passes, just short passes, making up 7-8 yards of play, they're going to find the end zone if we keep playing soft. So I want to see us getting tighter, more man-to-man, and not playing flipping soft coverage. I had to watch my language there because I don't want to be editing out any swearing. But that's what I want to see the Bucs do. But as you say, JJ Watt, he could potentially have a field day. What side does he line up? Is it on the left? Is he on the left side?
He normally ends up lines up on their left side. So
he's on their left.
Josh Wells.
Yes, yeah.
And Shaq Mason a lot of the time.
Yes.
But Alex, don't forget with what you were just saying about the soft coverage. That's play calls called by a genius of a defensive coordinator.
That's also true. So maybe I need to reword and go different play calling from our defensive coordinator, please.
So we need different play calling from our defensive coordinator, different calling from our offensive coordinator, and don't even take the special teams coach with us.
Well, okay, we're going to have a great sideline, aren't we, on Saturday?
That sums it up nicely.
I think it'd be wonderful for a slot.
Well, and as usual, gents, to round off the show, we do our score predictions. How do we see this one going? Gary, come to you first.
Well, I agree with what Tim said earlier about coming out party. They must be dreadfully embarrassed about what happened last Sunday, and in fact, they must be dreadfully embarrassed by the whole season. The season as a whole so far. So I'm going to say we are going to play 60 minutes, Tim, and I'm going to say 33-17 Bucs.
Not far off me, to be honest, mate.
Tim, I think Tim, that's a perfect time for me to come over to you, as Gary mentioned you there. So
I
go for it, Tim.
I mentioned coming out party in a podcast about 6 weeks ago. It didn't quite happen, but I think the team have got the invite this week, and it's going to be 34-13.
Like that one as well, like those two score predictions.
And Mike Evans will get his 1,000 yards, Gary. You'll be pleased to know.
Yes, please.
Absolutely.
Yes,
no
please. How far? He can't be that far off now.
112.
112.
Yeah. Oh, I tell you what, as you guys know, I'm a huge Mike Evans fan. I will be thrilled if he gets 1,000 yards again this year. Absolutely thrilled. And David, your score prediction,
well,
please.
you're incredibly catching. I have him for 35-6.
Whoa!
A Trump said.
Whoa!
Yeah.
I'm in the same area. I mean, I'm not as optimistic as David in terms of what Arizona are going to get, but I'm also sort of in the same sort of rough window as you guys there, and I am going for 31-9 to the Buccaneers. Surely this has got to be a coming out party. And I think, was it you, Tim, you said about, it was you or Gary. I've had such a great episode this week, everyone. If you're still with me, thank you so much for sticking with me this week. I've done so well. So I appreciate it. But it was either Gary or Tim, you were saying about how embarrassed the team must be so far. So I can't remember which one of you it was.
Yeah, it's
and
me.
they're going to want to put with you, Gary. Sorry, thank you. They're going to want to put a marker back down, I'm sure.
They've got to put the marker down for other teams to even think we're going to challenge someone in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously I'm jumping ahead right now, but at the rate we're going right now, if we were going to the playoffs, I think we would be. I don't think embarrassed is even a strong enough word to describe it. I think it would. I think the word I want to use I can't use because we're a family show.
But once you're at the party, you've got the chance of winning the prize. You've got
That's
to get
also
to the
true.
party.
Yeah.
I mean, don't forget,
Sorry, David.
Prescott hasn't had his injury for the season yet.
Not just a quick disclaimer. We don't wish injuries on any players here at Bucs UK. That's not what David is suggesting there.
This
Yes,
isn't a
we
Saint
do
style
when they're for the
bounty.
opposition.
What's that? Sorry, Gary. What was that?
I say yes, we do when it's the opposition player.
Well, apparently some people do. On that note, I think we'll bring our episode to a close. Tim, David, Gary, thank you so much for joining me to talk Buccaneer football. Despite the results, it is always great fun to talk about our team. And all that's left for me to do is to first of all wish you three a very happy Christmas. It's been a great year for us here at Bucs UK. So have a great Christmas, Tim, David, and Gary. And to those who are watching and are listening, also to you, a very happy Christmas. Enjoy it, but please stay safe. Don't forget the Buccaneers in the UK. We are playing on Boxing Day morning at 1:20 a.m. kickoff. Hopefully, Kieran will be back for the next episode, and I hope he gets to lead you through a victory rather than another defeat. We've got our fingers crossed. So, as always, take care. Thank you for watching, and go Bucs.
Go Bucs.
Go Bucs.
Thanks, you can go now.
That pretty much sums it up, doesn't it?
I'll stop the recording first, but it does, doesn't it? Yeah. It's hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. Where's my stop? David,
Go on.
I need your copy of the recording.
Did you forget to press record, Alex? By any chance?
So did I. No, I didn't.
No, you didn't.
Oh God!
How do I stop recording? All right.
At the bottom, it should say stop recording.